Well, hello again, everyone. We're about to start the webinar, so thank you for joining us for How to Sell Online in Germany. Just a few housekeeping points. Everyone will be on mute during the webinar, but please do use the chat box if you'd like to send us a message. The webinar will be about 30 minutes, and today's presenters are Susanna Hardy and Tereza Santava. During the webinar, there'll be 4 polls at different points. We'll have time for questions and answers at the end, and also right at the end there'll be a brief survey which we do appreciate your feedback. The copy of today's broadcast and the slide deck will be sent out to everyone on Friday. Finally, this is one of a series of webinars that we run to help companies export and do business internationally. All of the recordings can be found on IBT Partners website under the resources. Just a moment to tell you about IBT Partners. We're a private company that is based in the UK, Germany, France, and the US. We have been helping do international business for over 15 years, and our core activity now is development of international websites and to provide online marketing services, as we believe that is core for companies to succeed in the international market. Our host today is Susanna Hardy. Susanna is IBT Partners Managing Director for Europe. She has lived and worked in US and in Europe and has over 20 years of experience helping companies grow internationally. Our guest speaker is Tereza Santava. Tereza is one of our senior project managers based in Germany, and she is directly responsible for helping clients with their online strategies and developing their international sales. Tereza has a master's degree in system analysis and design and a bachelor's degree in international business. Susanna, I'm going to hand over to you. Are you there?
Thank you very much, Michael, and it's a real pleasure to talk to everybody today and to be with Tereza talking about selling online in Germany. And we've slightly changed the format of this webinar because it seemed to me that we had a lot of questions already there from our clients that we could really share some of that knowledge with you. So here's what we're going to be talking about. I'll be talking about a bit about sort of Germany's place in the world, and particularly the internet world. And then what we've done is curate the best questions or some of the broadest and widest reaching questions that we have regularly from clients, and try and sort of see what we've learned from our experiences, what they've learned, and try and share that all with you. And then at the end, we have saved some time also for some Q&A, and as Michael has said, drop your questions into the little box on the right-hand side, and we'll try and get to all of your questions at the end. And also we'll be having these little polls to try and figure out a bit better if we're answering their questions the way you want us to, or try and sort of steer the conversation to best suit today's audience. And it's really exciting actually that we've had really strong uptake on this webinar. It's very very pleasing to see. Also pleasing to see how many people we have from a very wide spectrum and wide geographic base. So without further ado, I'm going to talk a bit about Germany's place in the world and where that really means. So just a couple of facts and figures. Now, obviously, Germany is #1 in Europe for population with 81 million. And, Germany is large by any standard. 81 million, well, that's equivalent to about a quarter of the United States. If you put it another way, you could say that it is equivalent to the 3 largest states in terms of population in the United States. So that's California, Texas, and Florida combined. That's Germany. So really worth thinking about that. And in terms of GDP, Germany is also Europe's largest, but by a really serious amount. It's over $1 trillion larger than the #2 and the #3, which happens to be Germany and France. Sorry, France and the UK. So it's the 4th largest economy in the world, ranked by GDP, also GDP by purchasing power. And by the way, just so you know, all these numbers come from the World Bank and the OECD estimates. But if you put that into perspective, what is, sort of nearly $4 trillion? Well, $4 trillion is equivalent to roughly twice the size of India. So that also gives you a sort of some kind of perspective of how big this economy is. And finally, Germany really is a manufacturing powerhouse, and you can tell this because of its positive trade balance. Year after year, Germany just exports amazing amounts. Now, $1.5 trillion worth of exports last year. That, by the way, is pretty well on a par with what the USA did. So Germany equals USA in terms of exports. The USA was 1.6, Germany was 1.5 last year. Put another way, German exports is equivalent to twice the level of Japan just in 1 year. And that's year after year. So I wanted to talk also a bit about what that means to be sort of a manufacturing powerhouse. Now these iconic brands that you can see here.
Susanna.
I just wanted to put a couple of them up there, but I think
Susanna, I was just going to interrupt you. Can I launch the first poll before you go on too far? Okay, I'm just going to launch the first poll, so this should come up on your screens.
Good idea.
If we could...
Absolutely, and just encourage everybody to click on them and answer.
Yeah, I'm getting mixed results here. It looks like about 50% of you, 40% are directly exporting to the US, to Germany, and about 39 indirectly, with about 14% on the bottom two polls. Thank you very much. I'll close the poll now.
Thank you, Michael, and apologies for galloping ahead there. So I really wanted to just talk about some of these iconic brands and really just highlight the fact that these brands range from, the amazing car companies, and Germany made nearly 6 million cars last year just in Germany. But also retailers, consumer goods, SAP, Europe's largest software company, finance, Haribo sweets, it's got it all. So that's really, I think, what's important there. Just, it spans from pharma to household consumables, chemicals, manufacturing. So I guess my point really is that the chances are your biggest client, your biggest competitor, your biggest supplier, and your biggest prospect buyer is German. So Germany has got to be one of those priority markets for you when you're looking at export markets across the world. Now, just getting back into sort of what causes that, what drives that powerhouse, I wanted to spend just one moment talking about what's called the Mittelstand. The Mittelstand is a very particular term. It's almost medieval in terms of how it was formed and through the guilds and all of this. But anyway, today what it means is a type of company that you find in Germany. It accounts for over half of German GDP, and it employs over 2/3 of German workers in the private sector. And they're basically family-owned companies that have really strong expertise in specific products. They're probably world leader in their niche, most likely engineering niche. And I think what's important to realize here right from the very beginning is how long-term orientated and how expert orientated they are. The export orientation is from the very start of these companies, and always has been. The way they're structured is to expand internationally. But it also means, partly also because they're family-owned, they have a very strong belief in very direct and loyal partnerships, which they have for long periods of time. So they don't like risk. They want partners, buyers, suppliers who are reliable, trustworthy, known to them, and within easy reach, easy dialogue. And this becomes very important when you start looking at your online profile and how you'll center that, as Tereza will talk a little bit later. Just the map on the right-hand side, by the way, just a little picture of Germany there. Just a reminder, Germany is a very federal place. It's made up of lots of what are called Lands, which are like states, Länder, and each one can be quite specific. So, North Rhine-Westphalia The NRW is probably one of the largest, and that's really just all the chemicals, manufacturing. If you look at the Rhine-Neckar, for example, that's the largest IT and high-tech cluster in Europe. Stuttgart, where Tereza is talking to us from today, is the center of the German car industry, and so on. So there's really, again, these very localized centers which are worth knowing about in Germany. Now, looking at Germany online and where Germany sits on a digital world, Germany Online has, again, the largest and leading European internet population at 51 million consumers that go online regularly. And that's 51 out of the 81 million that we talked about. Now, there are lots of graphs and trends and things talking about B2C and B2B. The one here on the right that I'm showing is by Arthur D. Little, but there are many of them. The numbers, the actual numbers themselves are not that important, but I think what's important is just to kind of get the scale of it. First of all, that the B2C world in Germany represents a quarter of all European e-commerce sales. So one market equals a quarter of all Europe. Again, these are again highlighting the importance and the priority that Germany takes in an export strategy. And the other point, I guess, is just how fast growing this is. 25% growth in this sector, which means that it should overtake the UK by the end of this year in terms of actual total size, which I think is also worth knowing about. There are a lot of studies that are put out there. As I mentioned, some of them are looking at sort of the e-commerce world representing sort of up to 50% of German GDP by 2017, 2018. So again, these are very strong numbers and strong things like that. There's one other topic that I think we decided we're going to touch on, but not really explore fully, and this has to do with cross-border sales. Cross-border sales really are German websites or any website which reaches into nearby neighbors. And German websites, in German, they obviously reach into German-speaking neighbors like Austria, parts of Switzerland. But they're also reach into parts of Poland or the Netherlands, Eastern France, some of Eastern Germany. Now, this is a phenomenon which is known as cross-border transactions, cross-border e-commerce. It's growing very, very quickly indeed. We've decided it's a very important topic for your strategy, and we have an entire webinar, devoted just to that. So we're going to, just mention it here, but just to say a German website does also reach out beyond the pure German economy, which is very useful. And now I want really to turn to the nuts and bolts of our presentation and get Tereza online if she's there, and really just talk about some of the key questions that our clients have given us. And I guess one of the very first ones that we have is, why have a German website in that sense? I have, a lot of our clients come to us and they say to us, I have an English website, and I get, Dutch, Brazilian, Mexican people clicking on it, but I get very, very few Germans. Why is that? Tereza, are you there?
Yes, hi Susanna, hello everybody. Thank you for inviting me to join today's webinar. I'm really happy to be here. So to answer this first question, actually about half of the sites on the internet are in English. And that's pretty much understandable given the history of the internet. But just because the most of the online content is in English, it doesn't mean that the Germans search in English. This might be true for some nations that don't have many online resources in their native language, or where the products are not available for any other reason. But usually this is not the case of Germany. In fact, German is the third most common language on the internet. So when Germans are looking for something online, there's a very good chance they're going to find it. Sometimes they can search in English, for example, if they're looking for a specific piece of information, maybe a research or study, or when they're really persistent in looking for a specific niche product. And you might think, yes, that's me, I'm the niche product manufacturer. But these are exceptions, and you shouldn't base your market strategy on an exception, because ultimately most Germans will use their native language to search online, to use the internet. So when they look for something like your product, Google will provide them with many results in German, and your English site will not be able to get there, and therefore your company, your business will remain invisible. So that's why you might be getting only few German visitors to your English site.
Thank you, Tereza. That's very concise. It's an amazing factoid that German is the third most common language on the internet, and that really does highlight the fact that they've already got it there. So you need to be there if you want to play in their park as well. Thank you.
Susanna, I'm going to interrupt with another poll if I can.
Good idea, Michael.
Okay, here comes the next poll. Do you already have a localized website for Germany? Yes, no, but planning to do so in 6 months, or no? Just give everyone a few more minutes or a few more seconds to answer that one. At the moment, we have 30% yes, 40% who plan to within 6 months, and about 30% who have no. Yeah, I'll just give you a moment longer. Last chance to vote. I'm closing the poll. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Getting back to Tereza and some of the main questions we have, one of the top questions that comes up particularly regularly with us for our clients is, if our clients have a distributor, then they say, why do I need a local website? If I've got a distributor for Germany, why can't he promote me online? Tereza?
Yeah, that's a question we get a lot, and definitely having a distributor doesn't mean you shouldn't have a website or the other way around. Many companies delegate promotion offline and online to their distributors, and they completely rely on the distributors in the marketing activities. And it makes sense. I mean, the distributors, they have the local knowledge, the expertise that the US companies don't. So that's why you appointed them, right? That's their job. But you have to realize that many distributors, they have their own agenda. They might have products that are competing with your brand and that might get more attention from prospective German customers. For example, even if you had a product that is of better quality, but next to a product that is known to Germans, the brand is recognized, then you're probably going to lose. So it might put you in a not such a good position. What you need to do is really show the professional branding. You should provide them with background information on your company. You should share reviews, customer references to show the track records that you already developed. Even if it wasn't in Germany, it might be elsewhere in the States, elsewhere in Europe. Germans love seeing that something has been certified. There are various organizations that can provide this. And if you are able to present this information, then you're gaining their trust. You're getting recognized. And that's so important. That's what can make or break the sale. So we don't say don't encourage your distributor. Definitely ask him to help you promote, but you are responsible for building your brand. So engage him, but don't completely rely on him.
Thank you very much, Tereza. I mean, it all hangs together also with what we were talking about earlier with the Mittelstand and that need for trust, reliability, credibility, which is so important in export markets and which localized, which has to do with online platforms. And here it's like, well, why can't I just sell on Amazon or some other platform in Germany? Tereza?
Yeah, Amazon is hugely popular in Germany, not just in the United States, and it's an easy solution. There are actually other very successful online platforms. You can see an example, Otto and Chibo. Chibo actually started as a coffee selling company, but now they are one of the biggest online retailers, and they sell you anything from electronics, holidays, insurance, very popular in Germany, to mobiles, anything. There are also specific or product or industry-specific online platforms. Probably the most successful one in Germany is Zalando, which is internationally renowned. They're in the fashion industry, and you can buy anything from shoes, clothes. So of course, it's very easy and convenient to use these platforms when you're selling in Germany. But these platforms might not be suitable for all products, so you should definitely consider that. They are good, for example, if you're selling cheaper, standardized, commodity-type product, let's say HDMI cables. What does the customer need to know? What's the price? Is it cheap? And is it good? It means reviews. Did it get 4 or 5 stars from other people who purchased it? And Amazon can provide just that information, so it's really good for these types of products. On the other hand, you have the branded products. Everybody recognizes some of the fashion brands or electronics, and they search for it on Amazon, and it's really easy to sell these types of things there. But if you are in the B2B sector, or if you're selling high-quality niche products, then these online platforms might not be sufficient for you, because you need to explain your story, build the brand, and it ties back again to the previous question when we were talking about the distributor and how you need to build that credibility and recognition in the German market. So a dedicated company website can really help you achieve that, but these online platforms will not successfully let you do that.
Tereza, thank you. Absolutely clear. Yeah, you need some kind of a local presence that to build the trust again. Michael, do we have a poll here as well?
We do. We have our third poll. I will launch that now. Do you actively sell online via a platform in Germany? So we have 3 answers here. At the moment, we have about 7% saying yes via Amazon and eBay, about 10% no, but planning to in 6 months. But the vast majority, about 85%, don't. Okay, thank you. I'll close the poll here.
That's very interesting. Very interesting indeed. I'm presuming that ties in also with what we were saying in earlier poll number 2. So now we've got some of the big picture stuff, talking about some of the nuts and bolts and specificities of the German websites and German online selling. One of the things that asked regularly from our clients, Tereza, is basically, how do the Germans find me? What are the best ways to get German prospects to find my sites?
Yeah, I'm always fascinated how many TV commercials I can see that are promoting websites. There are almost as many of those as insurance advertisements. So it's really fascinating. But to be honest, this probably won't suit your budget, or you don't want to reach such a broad audience because so many people are watching TV. You might want to target a specific audience. And for that, we would recommend a combination: search engine optimization, social media, and possibly if you're attending a trade show, then that's a great opportunity to promote your brand and your website there. And again, engage your distributor when he's doing networking or whatever means accessible to him. These are the great ways how to promote your website, because if you're just going to build it and not do anything, the visitors won't come. So one of the most important parts of this is the search engine optimization, making sure that you pop up on Google. And this is really important when it comes to German language. You need to get the right keywords for your product names. German is a wonderful language, and Germans love creating new words from existing words, and sometimes they can get really long, like those that you can currently see on the slide. These are actually genuine words describing various types of businesses or companies or services. And if you were translating your product names to German, you might end up with something similar. Is it good or bad? Well, I'm unable to say just based on this information, because you have to compare all different possible ways how you could translate your product in German. And then do keyword research and find out what are the Germans actually looking for. And then if there's a match, you will increase your visibility online. So that's one of the recommendations. And then also let's talk about social media, because that's so important today. You can be successful with some of the global social media networks like Facebook or Twitter. There is also a local social media network called Zing. It's quite similar to LinkedIn, so mostly for networking, B2B, also career opportunities. So you can use a mix of those. But in all of these cases, you should be creating content and communicating in German. But don't get discouraged by that fact. Even if you didn't have German-speaking staff in your office, if you have a marketing specialist who's really dedicated, and if you have a localization expert to work with, like IBT, then that can help you overcome that obstacle, and you can really reach out to people in Germany and drive them to your website, convince them that you're the one they should choose, and then sell more.
Thank you, Tereza. A very clear message really that I took away from that was, if you're going to build the website, use it as well. And there's no excuse for not using a website just because it's in a different language from yours. So more specificities that we have regularly coming up to us from clients. Another one we have in German is, preferred online payment methods.
Susanna, before you move on, I'm just going to launch our final poll here. Are you active in social media in your export markets? Let's just see what the audience are saying on that.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay. Well, we're getting mixed results here. Okay. I think we're nearly done. 6% yes via the local websites, 59% yes, but only via domestic websites, and 31% no. Okay, I will close that poll. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Indeed, that's interesting. That means that a lot of people are, have a website, local website, and are not using it. Just wanted to then get back on track here. We were talking about other specificities in the German market and preferred online payment methods. And one of the questions we get regularly from our U.S., particularly from U.S. clients, is, can I use PayPal in Germany? Tereza?
Yes, definitely you can use PayPal in Germany. It belongs to the most popular online payment services, together with other providers like Sofortüberweisung or Click and Buy or GiroPay. So these are very popular and we recommend using them. But try to compare the individual providers. PayPal might be the one, but you might find the others suit you better. The online payment methods, they are really different compared to the United States. For example, credit cards, that's the #1 in the US, and then long time there's nothing else. In Germany, not so much. It's about 10% of the Germans prefer credit cards as means to pay online. And why is that? Probably because they don't use credit cards as much as other nations, not because they don't pay at terminals, but because they use EC-Karte. It's called electronic cash card, also called bancomat in Austria or in Italy, and it just works on a different principle. But that's how you pay in brick and mortar stores when you go shopping, but it's not actually working when you purchase online. So that's one of the reasons why they prefer online payment services where they actually can use these EC-Karte. And one more thing I would like to point out is purchase on account. That's quite unusual. What it means, basically, a customer places an order online and you ship the goods. You invoice them and then you wait 1 or 2 weeks depending on the terms, and then the customer pays you. Well, it sounds a bit risky, right? It is. There are some methods that help you identify if the customers are credible. but it can have its advantages. For example, if you're in a competitive market, then this can be a differentiating factor. It happened so many times that people left at the checkout because they were not happy with the payment method. So pay attention to this part of your strategy, of your export strategy in Germany as well. It's really worth it.
That's very interesting, Tereza. And also, I think one thing it comes across again and again, this necessity to be trustworthy, reliable, and so on, and the whole notion of purchase on account is quite foreign to a lot of Americans and UK buyers. And what about now other terms and conditions? Can I apply the same terms, T's and C's, as for my US?
Yeah, that's a very common question, but unfortunately there's no straight answer to it. It really depends on what you're selling, to whom you're selling, and what your existing terms and conditions are. In some cases, the lawyer can tell you, yes, you're a US company, so you can just stick to the US legal framework and you're good. But the Germans will expect you to adhere to the local rules and to the local standards. And they are much stricter than the US one, especially when it comes to consumer law. In Germany, as in other European countries, you have to provide 2-year warranty on goods, as well as 2-week cooling off period during which the customer can return the product back to you without giving the reason. And yeah, that sounds tough, that sounds strict, but that's what all European providers have to do. And if you don't, then maybe they will go to your competition. Even if your product is better, I mean, if you cannot provide 2-year guarantee, probably it's not good enough. So it really comes back again to the credibility and the guarantee, because the better guarantee you can provide, more sales you can actually close. So that's really important. Also, there was a specific case where a court ruled that a foreign company that had nothing to do with Germany, had to comply with the German legislation just because they were targeting German customers. So it's a really thin ice, and we would advise you consult it with your lawyer, but rather offer more than less.
Thank you, Tereza. A very succinct view on that, and again, we're getting some pretty clear messages on this. Given the time, we're just sort of going to wrap up now. Just a quick resume of a couple of things that we've been talking about, and I wanted to leave you also with sort of some incentive. Here's very often we find a lot of our clients come to us when they have a major event like a big trade fair that they're going to attend, and they say, right, I'm finally going to bite the bullet. I'm going to get a localized website so I can really optimize the expense of the trade fair. Kind of a mess as this year, end of April. It's going to be a mega trade fair with Obama and everyone else turning up. It's going to be absolutely a huge one. And the USA is actually the host country this year. So we are getting a lot of requests for this thing. And when we're looking at localized website marketing, we put there 40% more leads. Obviously, these numbers, that's just from our numbers in-house of what we've seen with our clients. But it's clear that if you have a website that's working for you in your dedicated target market, when you have a trade fair, you really can optimize and increase the number of leads. And I've given a couple of little things there at the bottom, optimizer tips, about what some of the things that are really useful to do is, for example, if you're always going to the same trade fair, stick it on your website all the time, all throughout the year. And I'm also bringing this up because obviously Germany is like the home of the trade fair. There's over 150 international trade fairs and exhibits held every year in Germany alone, and it's so it's the world's #1, and it has by far the largest trade fairs internationally. So just summing up some of the things we've said, really just about localized websites, how they can provide the visibility and credibility that you need to succeed in the German markets, how you can use your distributors rather than get used by them, with you when you control your local website, and how you can really go global with the website localization. Now, that being said, we have left, I hope, a little bit of time for some questions and things. But I don't know, Michael, do we have any questions that have come in?
Hi, Susanna. Yeah, we've got quite a few questions that have come in, so I will pick 3 of those that we will answer, and the rest we will follow up with you afterwards. So if you have sent a question through the chat box or reached out through the messaging, then we will follow up with you afterwards with answers to your questions. Okay, so the first question that I'm going to pick out of the list here is, where do I actually buy my German domain name? Tereza, I'm going to ask you to answer that one.
Yeah, sure. So where to buy a German domain name? So we're talking about .de. This is the one for Germany, and you can purchase it pretty much at any domain register. So wherever you register .com, see if they offer .de. Usually they do. If not, then it's just a question of quick Google search who provides that. Purchasing a domain is a German domain is fairly easy. The local requirement to purchase the German domain is to have a local address. But a lot of domain registers can provide you with a local contact, so you can overcome that problem. If you don't already have a distributor or subsidiary, don't worry, you can still register .de fairly easily. The cost, $15, $20, $25, it depends where you buy it. And sometimes you can find that the domain was already purchased by somebody else. We saw that so many times, competitors or ex-distributors doing that. Not very nice, but it happens. And what you can do is actually try to negotiate with them, but usually they ask like thousands of dollars, not really worth it. It's important to own it so that you have your brand, but it's not that important for search engine optimization. Yes, having that helps, but there are ways to actually find a way around it. For example, using subdomains like de.yourcompanyname.com or subdirectory, which is companyname.com.de. So I'm sorry that I took a bit longer to answer this, but actually what happens very often is that you cannot register because somebody else has already, but don't give up. It's not a disaster.
That's great, Tereza. That's really interesting, and it's true. It's happened quite regularly with us that a US or UK or whatever his company tries to buy a German one, and it's already taken. So good that we already have some answers to that. I'm just interjecting here because there's a question from Michael, which I think is right up your street, Michael, and I wondered if you could answer it. It's basically one of the attendees who's looking at sort of thinking about getting a localized website, and he's been told that he needs to host locally. So his question is, what does it mean to host locally, and is it safe? Michael?
Yeah, locally hosted means that the server, the website that the server is sitting on is actually in country, so in this case in Germany. We usually do recommend that because it does help with website speed and also with search engine optimization. But for actually obtaining one, then most of the international hosting companies will be able to provide that service, and security-wise, they all have very high level of cybersecurity. So if you do want to go down that route, it is certainly a good idea, but not the only option, but it is something worth considering.
Okay, thank you.
I will finish off with the last question. This one's going to be for you, Susanna. I have 2 main clients, one in Germany and one in Austria. I have been told that the German used in Austria is different. So can I use a single local website?
Well, this gets back to our little question here about cross-border transactions, and do look out for our webinar on cross-border, which we will host at some point. It's true that German spoken in Austria, Switzerland is slightly different from German in Germany. And even within Germany, there's a difference between the regions, north, south, and even within say the south, there's a difference in Bavaria or other places. So there are regional differences. Nevertheless, there's something called Hochdeutsch, which is sort of like a standard German. And even if there are differences in the standard German and the Hochdeutsch, they're acceptable. The main differences that you can get within Hochdeutsch, within standard German, are things that relate to things like food. So the Austrians will have different words for certain types of food than the rest of Germany. But excluding that exception, it is very acceptable, and everybody is happy, whether it's in Austria or the north of Germany, if you just use a standard level of Hochdeutsch, as it's called, High German. Thank you, Michael.
Great. We have run quite a bit over time, so we will be closing the webinar very soon. Just before I do that, I'll just say again that for all those people who have put questions into the chat box, we will follow up with you afterwards and answer your questions. So thank you very much for participating today. The webinar will be sent out as a recording to you on Friday. We're going to just finish the webinar with a survey on your screen, and we would appreciate your feedback to help us improve the webinars in the future. And very finally, thank you very much, Susanna and Tereza, for an excellent presentation.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks to all the attendees, and thank you especially to Tereza for giving such expert and concise replies. Thank you, and happy exporting.
Thank you.